The Conquer Worry Show, episode number 15.
Welcome to the Conquer Worry Show, the show dedicated to helping people who struggle with mental health issues. If you are looking for stories of resilience, if you are looking for motivation and inspiration, and if you are looking for strategies to conquer worry, this is the show for you. Glad you could join us for another episode of the Conquer Worry Show. If you have not been to our website lately, please head on over to conquerworry.org, where we have resources for those who are struggling. I'm excited to have Kathryn Tristan on this episode of the Conquer Worry Show. Kathryn is a professor of medicine at Washington University's School of Medicine. She has appeared on radio, television, and spoken at international conferences. She has written or co-authored more than 250 articles in leading scientific and lay publications, including Parade Magazine and Scientific American Medicine. She is a member of the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, and she is the author of Why Worry, which is a comprehensive look at stress, anxiety, and worry. It addresses a full spectrum of solutions to worry and taking back control of your life. We should have had her on the show earlier. Kathryn, welcome to the Conquer Worry Show.
Thank you, Jay. I'm delighted to be on the show.
Great. Well, first, before we get started, our listeners would love to learn a little bit about you personally. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, absolutely. I have, aside from being a scientist for many years, I actually was a big old worrywart. When I was younger, I had the kind of problems with anxiety that we try to avoid by thinking differently. But when I was younger, I didn't have those kind of skills. And despite being a single parent of two and being a scientist, I found myself having anxiety and panic attacks. And that actually set the stage for many years afterwards because my main coping strategy was try to avoid it. So I still was able to manage living a pretty decent and happy life, but I learned so many things. I decided I wanted to write about it to help others who might be dealing with the same kinds of problems I was.
That's fantastic. And I tell you, we like to ask our listeners at the beginning of an interview, how do you personally conquer worry?
And the thing that you have to remember is that worry is actually good for you. Any biological emotion, anything that we feel in our bodies has evolved for millions of years, and it's there for a reason. Maybe we need to worry, for instance, if we're having a health problem. Maybe that will help us see the doctor. Maybe we're worried we're not going to do as well. Well, that'll make us work harder, practice harder. And so worry in its own place is a good thing. The problem is one of balance. Like everyone worries, sure, but we know there's a problem when you're constantly crabby or you're on edge. You just can't relax. Maybe you're overeating, maybe you're undereating, maybe you're drinking as a soother. And I'll give you an example. I once gave a talk at a book signing, and this big burly guy comes up to me afterwards and says, well, I don't worry. And I thought, well, that's good, but I wonder why he came to my talk. And then he kind of leaned over and said, I wake up at night, though, and I can't go back to sleep. Is that normal? And so what that illustrates is, no, it's actually not normal unless you do it once in a while, because worry is going to come out, it's energy, and it'll come out as being crabby, or it'll come out as sleeplessness, or it will come out in health problems. It's something we have to deal with one way or the other.
Okay, so everybody worries. It's how you handle it that matters. So how do we know when that worry needs to be addressed?
Well, we need to know that when that worry needs to be addressing, because you really have to take a step back and say, is how I'm thinking about my challenges. Is that keeping me from feeling happy? Is it keeping me from enjoying life? Am I always worrying as soon as I wake up, or when I go to sleep, I'm worrying as well? And so maybe I'm overreacting. And so you kind of know then that your worries are hitting the red zone, and that's the time or before to start doing something about it.
Okay. Well, I tell you, there's a lot of research out talking about kids and the fact that they're starting to worry at an unduly young age nowadays. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Absolutely. In fact, I've monitored that because I started having problems in college. And it turns out UCLA has been doing a study for the last 25 years. And they recently did a study of more than 100,000 incoming college freshmen and found all-time lows of mental and emotional well-being. So that's been a downward trend for the last couple of years. And when you look at the statistics, even kids in high school are starting to feel stressed out and worried. And even in grade school, we're starting to feel that way. And sort of the question is, well, why? And I think, Jay, that part of the reason is that parents are stressed. Everybody else is stressed, and it's filtering down to our kids, too. The World Health Organization tells us we have a global epidemic of worry and stress with over 450 million people having mental or emotional issues. In the U.S., we like to be number one, don't we? Well, it turns out we're the wealthiest and the most anxious nation on the planet. So when adults are depressed and anxious, that filters down to the kids as well.
So the kids are modeling their parents and starting at a much younger age than they used to.
And there are, let's face it, there are other stresses that kids feel too. And their finances are one of the major things that we all worry and stress about. And kids feel the same way too. Maybe they want to go to a certain college and there's not enough money. Maybe they want something and there's not enough money, or there's concern about money. And another thing that kids tend to do is multitasking. It's been an estimate that we need a 42-hour day to do everything we need to do in a day. 42 hours. And the thing is, the problem with multitasking, it's actually called task switching. And what that means is you can't really do two things at once. Once you just do this, you think about that, then you switch and you think about that. And the thing is, they found out that task switching is actually very stressful. They tested students who were doing a math test and found out they were actually much less efficient with what they were doing, and they had an increase in stress hormones. So I think kids are also doing a lot of multitasking and filtering down from the parents about the stresses, and just, modern society is going really fast.
Yeah, I have read some things here recently about the switching cost in the business community, and specifically related to email, and how some really productive folks are turning their email off, turning Outlook off, and only opening it up a couple times a day. It seems to make sense. I've actually personally tried it over the past 2 weeks, and it's amazing how much relief it gives you to not have emails jumping out at you all day long.
Well, if you're sitting at your computer, you hear a little ding, then you hear a ding, and it's almost just like, I got to see what that ding is. I'll finish what I'm doing. I'll set that to the side. But you're absolutely right. Studies have shown that if you turn the email off and don't look at that, every couple of minutes or as it's coming in, you actually do a better job. You're more efficient, and you feel less stressed in general.
Let's move to your book. So in your book, you talk about 4 core concepts. How could our listeners benefit from your core concepts, and what exactly are they?
Well, when I got over my anxiety and my worry, I looked at exactly how I did it. Actually, writing the book helped me figure out how I did it. And what I realized was that I changed from the inside out. I didn't just address the fear and the worry. I addressed how I was living my life. And I developed 4 core concepts, which is really a 4-step plan to make changes in your life that are productive and helpful. And the first one, core, is like an acronym. Then the C in core stands for choice. I may not be able to control the things that happen to me, and you've heard this before, but how I react to them is totally up to me. You have choices. Worry is a choice. Stress is a choice. How you want to think about them, those are choices. And the second part of the core concepts is O for outlook. Once you realize you have choices you can make, you choose to change your outlook. Let's reduce perfectionism. Let's figure out how to deal with anger and blaming and guilt. Outlook just tells us we can change how we're thinking about our lives, especially what is causing us stress. R in CORE stands for risk, and that is something we don't like to hear if we're worriers. But here's the thing: if you want to get moving in your life, you want to follow your passions, you want to pursue what makes you happy, got to take a little risk. But once you learn how to better deal with your life, you're in a position to take a risk. And then the E in CORE stands for embracing your spirit, and don't leave faith out of the equation. I think it's important also to find out what the higher, happier part of you is, and unearth it and put that right back up on the top. So when you look at your life change from the inside out using the idea of the core concepts, you not only you slow down your worry, you make it more reasonable, use it to work for you instead of against you, and you change your life to be happier.
That's a great model. If somebody were to pick up your book, read through those explanations, how would you recommend that they implement that in their life? Is it a model where you would sketch out a plan to do that, or is it more of a thought exercise?
No, it's actually what I did was I drafted a lot of ways that you can do this. At the end of each chapter, I have not only a summary, because I forget things, but a summary and things that you can do right here and right now to implement those ideas. So, and I like to keep things simple. I may be a scientist and I live with a lot of complexity, but I like to cut to the chase and be simple. So I provide lots of examples and stories that people can sink their teeth into and say, maybe get an aha moment and try to change their lives based upon some of the stories and the exercises. So it's very user-friendly, and the whole purpose is designed to make you think about things a little differently.
Yeah, it sounds actionable, and you also mentioned in the book the concept of WabiSabi. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
I loved hearing about this concept. WabiSabi is actually a Japanese philosophy that was handed down from the Buddhists. And what WabiSabi is simply a focus on the transient but beautiful nature of life. And it's what is perfection? Perfection isn't necessarily what we think. Sometimes perfection can be considered in things that are worn out and old, and there's a certain beauty to things that even aren't by our standard of perfect. In Tokyo, for instance, there's a museum, and it has a WabiSabi section. And what it has is a nice old ancient vase, and there's a spotlight shining on it. And what it's shining on is a prominent crack right down the middle. And so the idea of WabiSabi is sort of just a Buddhist philosophy of regarding life and all its experiences as meaningful and things that can be helpful, and it doesn't have to be perfect to be something that we can think, something that we can enjoy and get some pleasure from as well.
That's definitely a great life philosophy to live by. So tell us, what's the best way to deal with worry based on your experience?
Well, it's like Lily Tomlin said, for instant relief, try slowing down. And, what I would like to do is I'm actually going to give you 3 quick ways to better deal with worry. And it sort of does, it's sort of a mind, body, spirit kind of idea. The first thing to do is simply take deep breaths during the day. I do just breath checks. I'm usually at the computer maybe, or I'm in the lab, and I just not breathing too deeply. You just take deep breaths. Take 3 of them at once. You could even set your timer or something to try to remind you, breathe deeply. People who have anxiety and panic attacks out of the blue, it's not really out of the blue. They can look at them an hour beforehand and see there's carbon dioxide building up in their blood because they aren't breathing deeply. So if you want to try to relax, worry less, focus on your breath and check it numerous times during the day and just take some deep breaths. The second thing is focus on now. Don't focus on the over and done past that maybe is sorrowful or angry to you. Don't focus on the potentially scary future as you see it. Your power is in the present moment. When you focus on now, you will find yourself worrying less about what might happen and focus right now where things usually are pretty good. You'll handle whatever you need to handle. That's something that you'll do. You know that 85% of what we worry about never happens, 85%. And when bad things do happen, 80% of people say they handled it better than they thought they would. So just focus on the present moment. And the last thing is focus on positive possibilities. I call this possibilizing. With those statistics showing that 85% of what we worry about doesn't happen, that gives you an idea. Focus on what's right about now. Focus on what could happen that's positive. If you can do those three things, you will find out you'll be happier, more relaxed, and you'll enjoy your life a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, that's a very useful model and very crisp and clear. So are any of those or any other method a path to quick relief in your opinion, in your experience?
Yes. The quickest way is something that I teach called the stop, look, and listen method. The stop, look, and listen method means when your mind is going in a loop and you're worrying, something that I call terribilizing, just simply see a stop sign or say the word stop. Awareness and choice are your two most powerful tools. You have to be aware of how your mind is working and just say stop. Then look around, acquaint yourself with where you are. Usually you're focusing on some dire consequence that is not even going to happen. So look around you. Use your senses. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel besides fear? Look around and acquaint yourself at the present moment. And then listen. Listen to more compassionate self-talk than things that are either beating yourself up or things that are worrying you. If you can stop with the way you're thinking, stop the runaway train, look around and acquaint yourself to where you are now and you're fine, and then listen to something like, I'll handle it, or this too shall pass. Find your mantra that works for you and be prepared for any things that happen to you that are potentially stressful. It's better to think about them and have your toolbox ready to go.
Kathryn, your book, Why Worry, appears to be packed full of actionable ideas and resources. Where can our listeners pick up a copy of this?
The book is available anywhere. It's also an e-book. You can go to my website, whyworrybook.com. You can click on a link to Amazon. It's available at any bookseller as a regular paper book or as an e-book. And so it's very much accessible for anyone.
And we'll, of course, have those links in the show notes to this episode. Kathryn, we like to ask all of our guests at the end of an episode how you would recommend somebody find their all-important life's purpose. And then what is yours?
You know what? I think my life's purpose, this is something we don't know when we're in the thick of things, is it? It's sort of when you look back and you can kind of savor the problems that you had. I think I needed to know what power meant and power over fear, because I always felt like I was a victim. The fear was bigger than me. Well, what I found out is I'm much bigger than the fear because I'm the one who gets to choose whether to accept it or not. So I think I had to learn where true power comes from, and it's an internal combustion engine inside yourself. You are the power, and you get to choose. That's the greatest power of all.
Fantastic. Kathryn, thanks for joining us on the Conquer Worry Show, and we hope you come back and join us again on a future episode.
I would love to, and thanks again for inviting me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Conquer Worry Show. For additional resources and tips on conquering worry, please visit our website at conquerworry.org.